Korean cannabis industry. So please.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction, Mr. Tick, and thank you for having me in this event, Cannabis Business Asia. We have been looking forward to it since last year, and finally, we are here in Thailand. I had to fly in from Dubai yesterday, so I couldn't make it on the first day of the event, but I'm glad to be here on the second day. And today, I'll be presenting about the legalization outlook for the Korean cannabis industry. I assume that any info coming from Korea is largely local and is not really publicized outside of Korea. And there were several instances that foreign cannabis-related consulting companies that set out wrong signals about the status of the South Korean cannabis industry, saying that I thought it was already legal, but I thought there was a legalization. That was a couple of years ago. So I just think that this would be a great opportunity to me to go through what is happening in Korea right now, and what would like to happen in Korea, what the people are working on right now. So let's go through it right now. So this is a brief history of the Narcotics Control Act that has been happening since 1935. There have been more older legislations that have put out the general thing to get the general notion about why it's happening this way in Korea right now. So you could disregard from 1935 to 97, but what happened in 1977, they separated each and every articles within the Addictive Drugs Control Act and separated those three different acts: the Narcotics Act, Psychotropics Control Act, Psychotropic Substances Act, and Cannabis Control Act. It was separated into three and was reunified in the year 2000. But the problem was that there were more specific punishes and penalties regarding cannabis in the 1977 Cannabis Control Act, opposed to the Narcotics Act and Psychotropic Substances Act that was largely untouched. So on the 2000 Narcotics Control Act that we still currently have, they have all similar penalties for narcotics and cannabis and psychotropic substances, but in addition to that, cannabis still has extra penalties, legal penalties for cannabis. So it is currently on a slight legal imbalance as itself along other articles, but at the same time, as we all know, cannabis is much less lethal, less addictive, even more beneficial to your body overall. So we're currently tackling that problem, which I will be pointing out soon after. So on 2018, there was an interesting movement in Korea. There was a patient group called KMCO. There was a pastor and a few group of parents that had children with epilepsy, especially with Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, and some other type of ailments that they couldn't get the proper medication in Korea. So they proposed to the government that we have to amend the Narcotics Control Act for the patients and the parents to get those pharmaceuticals from abroad. So there was a slight amendment, not satisfactory, for the slight amendment in the Narcotics Control Act, saying if you get approval from the KFTA, which is currently named MFTS, saying that if you get approval from the KFTA, you can limitedly receive drugs from abroad that you can't currently get it in Korea. So that is called the Orphan Drug Center in Korea. So the parents have to put in a filing request to the Korean Orphan Drug Center, and they can get the medication from abroad. But still, that's the only way the Korean people can get any cannabis-based products in Korea right now. And what happened last year in the Narcotics Control Act is not actually related to the Narcotics Control Act directly, but there was an amendment in the food code overshadowing what's the possibilities for cannabis-based substances infused in food, or I could say there is more clear guidelines on that. So I'll go back to that later on. All right, so to look on how the current Narcotics Act defines cannabis and its products. So you can go through, I could send out the presentation files later on, but it generally says the plant itself and the resin and all the products manufactured using cannabis plant or its resin as raw materials. But number C says chemical compounds or similar to those specified in item A or B, which shall be determined by, and which was determined by another ad was cannabinol, THC, and CBD. And like I pointed out on the bottom, it just says cannabinol, THC, CBD either from the plant or somewhere else. So it can be chemically manufactured, but it still be deemed as illegal in the current Narcotic Control Act. So either naturally derived or synthetic, CBD and THC is illegal at the same point. So this Control Act are still in effect. And what I pointed out on the history of the regulation right now is that under current law, it's same level of regulation regarding narcotics, psychotropic, and cannabis. But on top of that, there are extra regulations on cannabis, which says whoever exports cannabis illegally faces at minimum from 5 years to lifetime incarcerations. So a few examples, there was a person you could see when you go to cannabis conferences in Korea. In the audience, you see people that had jail time. One of the gentlemen that said was living in California, and he received a present from his friend, who was a CBD-infused soap that you could use at home, and he just got it as a present, didn't know there was CBD inside it, and put it in his luggage and came back to Korea. But the K9 unit sniffed it out from his bag and said, open it up, but he didn't know what was it about. And he saw the soap, and the Korean government said, you intentionally infused CBD in this soap to hide it from the government. So he got extra jail time, and seeing that the Korean local government or the penalties doesn't know at all what's happening abroad about CBD or cannabis, is largely still stigmatized and penalized by the government right now. So that gentleman became a advocate in Korea, of course, educating the local regulators and other people to be aware, but at the same time to change the current legal system. So cannabis is regulated on the same level with other narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. And under proper circumstances, the thing is, under proper circumstances, those narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances can be used locally and can be exported as a form of prescribed drug or a pharmaceutical or other products or anesthesia, such as so on and so forth. But it bans from anything related to cannabis to be manufactured or exported, or at the same time is really, really hard for importation other than research and development or usage in university facilities. So, like I said, there is no legal way of manufacturing, growing, and exporting cannabis-derived substances other than some exceptions that I pointed out through the Orphan Drug Center, but it's just a finished product that you have to consume as a product. So, but what is legal then? So, first, of course, you have to have the licenses to person handling the narcotics, and then possessing, owning, using, transporting, controlling, importing, exporting, all the other things are illegal right now, other than narcotics, drugs, or psychotropic substances. And for cannabis, cultivating, possessing, owning, giving, or receiving, transporting, storing, or using cannabis is illegal, except if you are a person that has a permit, limited permit, that doesn't go to farmers or other patients, only for those in the university research facility, or either you have a license as a cosmetics company, you have a GMP facility saying that you have the enough security license, security clearance to deal with narcotic substances. So right now, the Korean Narcotics Control Act points out cannabis plant and cannabis separately. So cannabis plant is a whole plant, including the roots, the fiber, the leaves, and the seeds and the buds. But the cannabis plant is only allowed for cultivation for fiber and seeds. So there are cultivars locally grown in Korea called cheongsam, but it has been cultivated for generations, mainly for the fiber. So because it's for the fiber, it's very tall and less leaves and less buds, and has almost close to no CBD or THC substances. So those are only allowed for traditional fiber purposes and seeds for the oil. But other than that, you have to burn all the buds, the leaves, etc. And cannabis means the leaves and the buds is restricted, otherwise used for public service, scientific research, or medical use. So the word medical use that I bolded was the amendment that happened in 2018, which states the organ drug center and which patients can get it imported from abroad. So prohibited, no need to say, all are prohibited unless allowed, and same thing for cannabis, the leaves and the buds. So of course, smoking or ingesting cannabis or cannabis seed coats are illegal. So the reason why they put cannabis seed coats is, as everybody would know in the audience, the cannabis seed live coats will include some point of CBD and THC. So if you try to import cannabis seeds into Korea, that only has to be without the seed coats. So what it means by the cannabis plant fiber and seeds mean that seed without the coat, and it has to be processed beforehand. So this was an amendment that happened in 2018 regarding the Orphan Drug Center. So if you see on Article 7, on the last part, medical purposes as prescribed by the presidential decree. And this is the presidential decree. I will go on briefly. And the term medical cannabis in Western countries, as far as I understand, are mostly include the broad spectrum, the plant itself. So you can get prescribed medical cannabis that is, like said by a gentleman, a gateway for recreational use, but at the same time, it includes the plant itself. But what it says as a medical purpose, medical cannabis, in this Narcotics Control Act, it only refers to EMA, FDA approved pharmaceuticals right now. Yes, the second bullet point. But there's a possibility that this article, which was suggested by the legal works that's currently happening in Korea, because the wording says medical cannabis and it's differently interpreted in the Western countries, there is a possibility that the KFDA could push this as, oh, we meant like medical use of the actual plant. So there is still a possibility, but it's not happening right now, but we're trying to push it that way. So it has a possibility that the article may be interpreted more broadly to include larger variety of products using cannabis-derived substances. So this is the actual presidential decree that the Narcotics Act is stating about. So if you just see the bolded text, says whether Korea Orphan Drug and Ancestral Drug Center under Article 91, cannabis as a medicine and cannabis as a medicine. So all of these products, if not most, if not all, are imported through this amendment were Epidiolex and Sativex, and mostly it was Epidiolex for epilepsy in Korea. I think there was something around 951 usages so far, prescribed usages for the past couple of years, and it was available since 2018, but only, I think it was last year, that was covered by the healthcare program because it was too expensive. So even though it's an orphan drug, it is covered currently by the current government, which is nice for the parents or the patients in Korea. So I went through all the boring stuff, all the bad stuff, maybe. It's a good stuff to be regulated, to be changed. But there has been some significant improvements in the as a country. And first is the Gyeongbuk Hemp Regulation Free Zone. So Gyeongbuk is one of the main provinces in Korea that has been cultivating hemp traditionally. And they introduced the Gyeongbuk Hemp Regulation Free Zone in 2020. So they had discussions before that in 2019. So since then, we have been helping some patient advocate groups like KMCO and other research facilities, universities, in order to push this hemp regulation free zone. It was almost toppled down from the opposition, from the MFDS, saying, oh, we don't know too much about cannabis. We're reluctant to legalize it in any sense. But there was more push from the government side and the Gyeongbuk province side, suggesting that the changes are happening abroad, then we have to do this right now. So unfortunately, it got passed, and it's a 2 years temporary waiver for the POC. So if the regulatory free zone does the POC successfully, it gets another 2 years POC. And then after that, they have the say power for legal amendment to open the market in Korea in a way. So it wouldn't mean that after 4 years the industry would be open, but there will be a way for the general public to access the cannabis market. But of course, there has been some mitigations in the discussions within the government of how much we will give the regulation free in the Gyeongbuk free zone. And there were 3 points. They can grow, cultivate, and extract hemp for CBD extractions and for export only. So we cannot have any internal use, and all the growth cycle extraction and production distillation has to be securely under a facility like a smart farm indoors. So it's only a lab stage facility right now. But they also have a waiver not have to dispose the leaves and the buds of the hemp plant that is already grown around Andong. So they cultivate it themselves, but at the same time, they can receive other plants to extract from the local areas. And third one, they have the waiver for the extraction and distillation of CBD from the leaves and the buds of the hemp. So number 2 is for cultivation, and they don't have to dispose certain parts of the plant. And 3 is the waiver for extraction and distillation, which you have already seen that is illegal in Korea in the current Narcotics Control Act. Oops. Yes. So this is one of the news articles that has shown what is happening in the free zone. There's the president of the center of the Gyeongbuk Bio Research Facility Center, and it's going through from 2020 to 24, about $40 million worth of budget, but a similarly limited plot of land, which is largely just farm, like smart farms in-house. At the same time, they are still inviting foreign companies also. So if you are interested into going into what's happening in Korea, or if you think you can help them do a better job, that you could contact them in a way to access the Korean market, which is soon to come. So the goal is a lab scale to pilot scale POC of local CBD isolation production, and to prove the management system that will work when the actual general public market will open. Well, the MFDS still sees that it has to be managed under lab environment, so we don't see any field-grown cannabis yet. But so that was one of the main goals of the free zone. And 3, POC for CBD isolate export. That would be more of a legal how, because, like I said, it's not available to import or export other than some controlled use. And export is what's more hard because, well, you couldn't cultivate cannabis before. So legally they are researching ways to export CBD isolate under current law to eligible countries abroad. And some other, maybe I could say less significant right now, but it could be a better thing. The first one is the Narcotics Control Amendment Bill proposed to legalize all cannabis with less than 0.3 THC for medical use. So this happened early last year. So Congressman Kim Hyung-dong proposes to the Congress saying that this and this is happening in WHO, UN, other countries of Southeast Asia, not just North America, that we are being left behind. So we don't have to be the pioneers, but we have to follow on the global construct, on the global development of the cannabis industry, to not be left out or not to be eaten by other countries or industries that has developed faster than us. So he focuses on legalizing CBD extract from hemp plant and not ruling out, but is not ruling out the cannabis from the Narcotics Control Act. So they have different opinions about this amendment bill. So people are saying, oh, it has to be completely out of the Narcotics Control Act, and there has to be a separate Cannabis Act, or Cannabis Control Act, or Industry Act to make it a sustainable industry. But still, I think is a really good nudge to the congressmen that have been totally unaware of any movement regarding cannabis. And the second one was actually the last part of the first slide, is change in the MFDS food code regarding CBD and THC's content in dried hemp seed. So as the interest of cannabis has been grown in Korea, a lot of manufacturers or importers have been importing hemp seed oil or hemp seed from abroad, but there has been a lack of knowledge from the regulators, from import authority and the MFDS saying, is it legal or not? Or are there any guidelines of the hemp seed oil or the substances, or what should be the potency of THC and CBD in those hemp seed? So last year, that finally there has been a first guideline to clear out what's happening and what should be the guideline for the hemp seed oils, hemp seed. And similarly, later last year, there has been a new work group in the Ministry of Agriculture. Their goal is similar to how US market expanded. They're trying to get cannabis as regulated under KFDA, MFDS, bring it to a Ministry of Agriculture to industrialize it properly. So it has been happening since last year and starting this year, and it already has 56 plus organizations, private companies, research facilities, and other government bodies that is researching regarding agriculture. And most recently, there's a publicized legislation research paper that was ordered by the government of Gyeongbuk provincial government that is proposing how we should approach the legalization of cannabis in Korea. I think the most important part is the granular legalization that is most likely to happen in a step from Asia. So it will start with orphan drugs, and then to local pharmaceuticals, then to medical in a broader sense, and then general use, and then recreational use, if any. So many people think that it will stop in medical, but the amendment bill proposed by Congressman Kim Young-dong proposed that the general use should be allowed also. And that is what I wanted to present regarding the legal cannabis. And the last bullet point, that we have 2 minutes, just wanted to introduce ourselves briefly. TCC is a cross-border consulting firm based in Seoul. We have offices in Vietnam, Hong Kong, and US. And we have been consulting private companies, foreign corporations, but of course, Korean government or provincial governments that is looking into emerging industries that they are currently not aware of. 3 or 4 years ago, that was blockchain. And now it has been cannabis that we have been trying to educate the people in Korea. Well, this is the scope of other works we do, a bit of an advertisement. And these are our offices. And right now, we're currently advising the governor of the Gyeongbuk province, Governor Lee Chol-woo. We are on the advisory board of 5 people. And at the same time, we've been helping the Gyeongbuk regulatory free zone and of course, the Ministry of Agriculture to better understand what's happening and what to happen. And we are more focused on educating them on what's happening abroad and what we should reference on. So that was my presentation, and hope you got something from what I presented. And if you have any questions, please feel free to come to me after the other presentations at the coffee break. Thank you.